Well, my name's Steve, and I grew up around North St Mary's, which is down the base of the Blue Mountains. It was an industrial area. It was housing commission, and well, life itself was a lot different back then. It was back in the day when you could leave your door open, no one would really hassle you. You'd go away weekends, nobody would come in, and there was never that element of fear. You could play in the streets at night, providing you come in about an hour after dark, particularly daylight saving. It was about a 20-minute walk to the station, but it was a 15-minute walk to the bus to get to the station. So I distinctly remember when my old man got home. We were living in Narwee, which is a outer suburb of Sydney, South Sydney, at my grandmother's place, and said that we got a new home. And when you reflect back on it, today people say, oh, we're moving house, not moving home. So even that whole concept was different. Around 2006, I became a foster carer. I didn't do that deliberately by any means. How it really started was, for 10 years, I was looking after kids, usually related to me or extended family. There was one particular time when I was looking after a third cousin of mine. He was only about 9 years old, and I went to put him into school. And then that's when they said to me, well, you've got no legal guardianship over him. And I didn't really think about it, you know. So anyway, I went to what's called fax now, but back then it was called docs. And I went through all the rigmarole to make sure you're legit. And started foster caring ever since. And over that period, I think I helped raise 22 kids. A lot of them still come back and knock on my door today, which I'm not always thrilled about. But but if they need a feed and a place to stay, they're quite welcome. Well, I'm living here in Narrowneck Road, and I've been here for about 4 years now. Before that, I had a house that was Department of Housing, but it was also a head lease agreement, which means basically that it's privately owned and rented out. And the Department of Housing, they were the tenants, so I rented through them. It was a bigger place, and after 20 years I found out the place was illegally built. And by that time, the house started falling apart. The ceiling eventually fell in. I had to give up foster caring because one of the children I was looking after was severe asthmatic. Mould started taking over, and so anyhow I had to move place. So even though I lived it was a large flat, the house that I got here on Narrowneck is a lot smaller. But I think it was about 3 weeks before I actually moved in, they turned around and said, well, the house that we're giving you is a 3-bedroom, and you won't be able to move into that house because you're a single adult. So anyway, I had to look around to see if I could get someone to move in, and Dawn needed a place to stay because they were closing down her accommodation, which was an Aboriginal organisation. So yeah, moved in there, and she needed looking after, and all of a sudden I'm not looking after children, I'm looking after an adult. Being an Aboriginal fellow myself, one of the issues that we always got to deal with is the element of security. It's, for instance, when you're talking to mainstream society, you talk about connection or where you're from. Well, this is where we are from, so it's like our land. But all of a sudden we feel that we're in competition with people, what we consider like outsiders, people from Sydney who move up here and start a life. And there's a lot of competition in regards to accommodation. So that's always a little bit testing for us. It's kind of difficult because there's always this underlying current of racism and bigotry. And a lot of people in the real estate, when they know you're of Aboriginal descent or Aboriginal people, there's this assumption that we're going to smash the house up or not look after the property. So they can literally just turn you down and not give you an explanation in regards to why you didn't fulfil that occupancy of, when you go for a house. They don't tell you. I mean, they wouldn't anyway, but it's just not a good feeling. I often make comparisons, like if people say to me, what's it like being an Aboriginal person in Australia? And you get the stereotypical understanding of a black fella in a loincloth with a spear and he's put up against his knee. But the thing is, we come from a land that's got over 800 different nations as in their own language groups, their own dialects, their own customs, their own beliefs, and they differ. So usually, to get a person to understand a little bit more in depth, I associate it with Europe and how Europe has, you just mentioned the name Europe, and there's all these different countries, and we all know that they're very small countries and they're defined by their borders and they've got different language groups, and the thing is, Australia is similar to that. Wentworth Community Housing itself it's good, but there's no 100% knowing that you're going to stay in that place until the day you die, because we're on a head lease agreement, and we've already been through that situation where the couple who owned this house did split, but luckily one of the partners outbought the other partner and decided to keep the place. She's a lovely Chinese lady. She owns the place, and she brought her family out one day and they're all standing outside looking at the house, and I thought they were tourists because we've got a lot of cherry trees out there, and a lot of Chinese people love cherry trees. And so I went and said, can I help you? And I said, we're just looking at my home. Said, yeah, well, come and have a look if you want. So yeah, very interesting. There's a lot of negativity, particularly in the media, against that small minority that do not look after their housing and may wreck the place. And they focus on that, but they don't focus on the 90% of people who actually look after their homes. You need housing. If we can't look after our elders and our children and have accommodation just for ourselves, well then what is there? Poverty itself is one thing, but going on the streets is another. And once you get into those pitfalls type thing, it's really hard to bounce back out.